So this is what our drawing is going to look like at the end. You've already got all of this in guidelines. We're going to first darken it in, and then we're going to do the dimensioning. So we'll darken in, I'll give you a chance to work on it, and then we'll do dimensioning. So remember I said when you have a drawing that's already been, that you've already drawn, and this one's not on vellum, so I need to retrace it on vellum. So if you've got a drawing drawn and you need to redo it, you can trace it. And if you've already started a drawing, so which all of you have since you have it in guidelines, you're going to line up on your parallel rule a line in the drawing, not the paper at this point, because it could have been a little bit crooked. So you'll line that up, and then I'm going to go ahead and trace on that the drawing so that I can darken it in, and you can watch me darken it in. So if I had made a mistake and I wanted to redo it, I don't necessarily have to remeasure everything. I can just trace it. These guidelines are probably going to be too light for you to see, but I don't want to do them dark so that when I darken them in, they overlap. So the beauty of tracing is then I don't have to measure, and I can do this very quickly. And guidelines, I don't care if they extend beyond the paper. Okay. I'm feeling underneath my parallel rule here because I'm not the only one who uses this, and somebody got tape on here. So you want to make sure, so I got a piece of tape from under there. You want to make sure if you're using the parallel rule that you run your hand along the bottom and make sure there's not tape, because that'll make an ugly mark in your drawing. So again, this is where we're heading towards. And all right. So I guess you can see my guidelines on there. So I'm going to line this up. I forgot one guideline. I'll have to measure that one. So hopefully you guys all read what I wrote, but I spent a long time writing an entire single-spaced page. And I talk about line weights in there. And when you're cutting through a building, everything you cut through, walls that you cut through, are going to be heavy. So remember that when we're cutting through a building, we're cutting through walls, we're cutting at 4 feet above the finished floor for each floor level. So we're cutting through walls, we're cutting through columns, we're cutting through doors, we're cutting through windows. So we're cutting right about at this point, and we would see everything in here. That's what we're seeing down in our floor plan. So I've got, you can see my little mark there. That was because I had a piece of debris under the drawing. I think I showed you all how to use the eraser shield, but I'll go over it again. The eraser shield can just expose the area that you want to erase without getting anything else in there. And then you want to make sure you use your brush. So the 3 tools in erasing are 4 tools: brush, pounce, erasing shield, and eraser. The Mars white plastic eraser. So I've got this in guidelines. And so this right here, this square right here is my wall. This is the window frame. That's the glass. And I've got 2 frames side by side, another frame, and glass in between. And this is the wall, a rectangle. From here to here is the sill. So I'm not cutting through the sill because I'm cutting at about this point right here. So I'm looking down at the sill. And to refresh your memory, the sill is what the window sits on the outside. It drains the water away from the building. And on the inside, it covers up the area of the wall where the window frame's not fitting, and becomes your plant shelf. So what I want to do is do this wall in heavy lines. So a heavy line is 2 medium weight lines. Rotate your pencil as you go through. And then I didn't do what I tell everybody to do. Let's check. That's why my thing's not. Make sure I was parallel. So rotate your pencil, make sure your pencil's sharp. For the HB lead, you're going to sharpen every few lines that you draw. Then I'll come back and I'll do my vertical lines. And you can ask any questions, including you guys here. And I'll repeat your question for somebody if you have a question.
The wall is heavyweight.
The wall is heavy because I'm cutting through it. Technically, the window should be heavy too, but it would get really muddied if I did the window. So we're going to do the window as a medium weight line, and anything we don't cut through is going to be heavy. So what I'm going to do is do all the horizontal lines for the window, and then come back and do all the vertical lines. When you're doing the heavyweight line for the wall, you want to pull the heavy to the inside so that everything lines up. So what lead am I using for heavy and medium weight lines?
HB.
HB, yes. What lead did I use for guidelines? Nicholas, tell me.
4H.
4H, yep. So if you use the 4H, your lines come out naturally really nice. So then I'm going to use a 2H for my lightweight, medium weight. I'm still on my medium weight lines. So that's the wall, and you should be able to see a difference in my line weights here. Let me see if I can zoom in. So can you see a difference in the line weights? Looks like I'm a little off on my dimension there. Then I'm going to do a lightweight line, which is a 2H lead, very sharp, only going across twice. It's always easier to come back and darken lines in. I think I need to deepen up some of my medium weight lines, so I'm going to do that. So I'm looking to see 3 distinct line weights. So this is true. This is essentially a floor plan for a freestanding wall. Now we're going to go and do the elevation part of it. Oh, I know why it looks a little weird. It's because I'm kind of at an angle. So this line right here, what the building sits on, is called the ground line. And the ground line is going to always extend beyond the building, and it's going to be a heavy line. It's not going to go to the end of the paper, and it's kind of arbitrary how far it goes. But you always want your building to sit on something. So that's my ground line. I didn't go to the end of the paper, and that's going to be heavy. And then on an elevation, we're going to use different line weights, heavy, medium, light for the walls. So the walls that are closest to you are going to be heavy, or on any object, the side that's closest to you is going to be heavy. The stuff that's midway point away will be medium, and the farthest away stuff will be light. So you always want to think about that. So since we're just doing a freestanding wall, this entire thing is heavy. And again, I'm going to pull my overlapping lines to the inside so that I haven't changed my dimensions. And then I've got the top part. All right, so that's the outside of my building. Now for the window, and I have more than one lead sitting here. I have more than one lead holder, HB, 2H. I would suggest you get more than one lead holder. 3 is ideal. And remember to tap off the tip after you sharpen. So the window is not something that we're cutting through, and it's on top of the facade or the face of the building. So I want the entire window in elevation to be light. So that's just a 2H lead going through twice. And the important part of this exercise is where I stop the frame. And when I get all done, I'll show you what I mean. Need some music playing while I draw. Usually I have music in the studio. I can put some on. Okay, so if you look at this corner up here, I'll zoom in on it. Or any corner, it's a rectangle within a rectangle. So I don't carry this line across or down, because this whole thing, and then the one drawing I gave you, I shaded it in, that's the frame of the window. Does anybody remember what kind of windows I just drew? What kind of window I just drew? You guys are most of my class. So you get one. The crank, casement, yep. So it cranks on the side, it's hinged on the side, it cranks open, and all right. What I'd like you to do is, I'm going to turn off my mic, but if there's 3, oh, funny. We got one person who's not in the studio. Oh, it's Robert, who already checked your stuff. So I'd like you to darken this in, because I'd really like you to be doing the dimensioning right after I do mine, in case you have questions. So I'm going to take, it took me 5 minutes, so I'll give you guys 15 minutes to get it darkened in. At the very least, get the outside dimensions darkened in. So I'm going to mute myself. So Robert, you're the only one who's not here in the studio. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So go ahead and try to do that, and then you're going to share your drawing with me
Okay. Cool.
afterwards. You can take a picture of it, so I'll just check.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. Robert and Tyler, you're the only ones not here. Tyler, I need to see your drawing before you darken yours in to make sure the measurements are correct. So Robert, what we're going to do is we're going to meet back here at 1:30, and I'm going to do dimensioning. So if you've already got yours darkened in, go outside, take a break, and we'll be back in at 1:30.
Okay. All right. I'm almost done, so
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. A couple people here are almost done, so then that gets like a 15-minute break to go and enjoy the beautiful fresh air.
Cool.
Okay.
all right. Thank you.
How come you're on the computer? This isn't a computer class. Oh, okay. Oh, you didn't watch us last Wednesday when I did it, did you?
I thought it was the one with the 3 squares at first, but then once I saw, I was like, this.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah,
as we like took windows and stuff, so.
yeah.
I'm a little
Yeah,
confused.
you're gonna need to watch the video.
Okay. It's, the border's spaced out by an inch
What border?
from the top and bottom.
For
to,
what?
like, size it towards the middle. Or,
For what project are we talking about? Let me turn off my mic. Okay, hi. We're back. So we're going to do dimensioning now. And I'm going to scan this drawing for you. So this is what we're going to dimension. These notes that I have at the bottom do not appear on your drawing. So this is just to give you an idea. And what we're going to have is we're going to have dimensions. This is called an extension line. So this extension line goes from here to here. And that means that I'm dimensioning from those 2 points. And here's another extension line here. A dimension line goes between 2 or more extension lines. So this is a dimension line across here. Up here, this is my extension line, and this one's going into the drawing. We'll talk about that in a minute, as is this one. And then the dimension line is between the 2 of them. When you, if you're in AutoCAD right now, have you guys done dimensioning in AutoCAD?
No, we do it Wednesday.
Wednesday, because usually we're right about the same time. So you're going to hear all these same terms again. You'll notice that down here I have a thing called 1/8 inch offset. And what I did is I didn't bring my dimension line up so it touches what I'm dimensioning. I want to have an offset. You can see it here too. Because if I touch the drawing, it's going to get confused with being the drawing itself. So I always want to have an offset. And in AutoCAD, you'll tell the computer what your offset is. And then we extend the dimension line beyond the extension line. And you'll also tell AutoCAD this part, how far you want to extend below and beyond. And then we use architectural ticks, which are at a 45-degree angle. You can do arrows, you can do ticks, you can do dots. Ticks are the easiest, especially for hand drawing. So that's the basics. After I'm done talking on that single-spaced sheet of paper I had, I want you to read the what I wrote about dimensioning before you start dimensioning. So I'm going to give you the lecture. I want you to read, and then I want you to dimension. So I will scan this a little bit later today and put it on Blackboard. But here we're back at our drawing. Let's see if I can get it so we're more even. It's distorted a little bit. It looks like it's getting smaller here, and it's not. So what I want you to do is to take out your Ames lettering guide. And you're going to use the Ames lettering guide to set up everything you need for dimensioning. Because we have all these holes when we're lined up with the 8 down here, all of these holes are 1/8 of an inch apart. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this part, my 1/8 inch offset, with a very light guideline. So I want to be with 4H lead right now. And then when I go back to this paper, if I have a single extension line, it's going to be 1/2 inch long from this point to this point. If I have a stacked one or a double, it's going to be 1 inch long from the end to end. So 1 inch from here to here. So I can then make the marks right away by counting 1, 2, 3, 4 down here. And I'll count 8 down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so what I very quickly did was gave myself the points that I need to mark. And then I can go and I can draw in with a light line my extension lines. And interrupt at any point if you have a question. So those are my extension lines. Now I need to draw the dimension lines. So here's my extension line. The dimension line is always going to be 1/8 inch up from the bottom of the extension line. So 1/8 inch up from here, 1/8 inch up from here, and 1/8 inch up from here. So I'm going to use my Ames lettering guide, and I'm just going to tick off 1/8 of an inch above that line. I hadn't moved my parallel, so it was still centered. And then we want the extension lines to overhang about 1/8 of an inch, and that we're just going to eyeball. And I was wrong on this end. Okay. So any questions? So that's my extension and dimension lines. Next, I want to do the tick marks. They're always going to be from lower left to upper right. If you look at this, they're always lower left to upper right. Those I'm going to make about 1/8 of an inch long as a heavy line, and I'm just going to eyeball it also. Don't make them too big, and don't make them too small. That one's probably a little too big. I would go back and erase that tip. And as a reminder, all of these drawings are done on clear print. If you don't get the paper from me, you want to get clear print vellum with an orange cover. It looks like this. And Leona had some different clear print. She can attest that this is much nicer. All right, so I've got my extension lines done, my dimension lines, and my tick marks. Now I need to do my dimensioning. And I'm not going to write on top of this line. I'm going to be 1/8 inch long and 1/8 inch high. And all your lettering, unless I tell you otherwise, is done with the guidelines. And I'll give you an assignment today that's due on Monday that's not with guidelines. You'll see why. So once I get that done, I don't have my 7mm pencil, but that's what you should use. If not, just use a regular 2H pencil. And I'm going to do my dimensions. So this one was 6 feet dash 0 inches. And my feet and inches have to be done with a straight edge, as do my lettering. And this one is 12 feet dash 0 inches. So this is what yours is going to look like. I'm going to scan this with notes, and I'll write on the bottom notes to help you dimension. But you're not putting any of these notes on there. It'll be clean like this. So are there any questions so far?
The lines that we're actually drawing to make our extension and dimension lines, what letter are we using?
Well, they're lightweight lines.
Lightweight lines, okay, got it.
And that's why I'm going to have you read that paper that I gave you before you start.
Where's the paper?
It's a single space paper. It's under assignment 6. It's single space, just typed. It's lots of words. So now I want to do these dimensions on the side. And I'm not going to rotate my paper, but you want them so that if I was reading this set of drawings, I just turn the paper clockwise and my dimensions would be reading correctly. Reality is you're not going to turn the paper, you're going to turn your head. That's what you want it. So you can see the top dimension is turned also. So we're going to start with these two. And to do that, I'm going to use my 45-degree triangle, and I'm going to run my Ames lettering guide along my triangle to get my dimensions. So I can get that one. And this dimension, because it's way far away from our building and we're going into the building, we're carrying it into the window. And we're stopping about 1/8 of an inch from the top of the sill and from the top of the window. So I want this to be the equivalent of that 1/2 inch, 1/8 inch gap plus 1/2 inch. So that if I have other dimensions farther down on the drawing, they all line up perfectly. So what's 1/8 plus 1/2? 1/8 of an inch plus 1/2 of an inch.
5/8? No, that was a wild guess.
What?
5/8.
How'd you get 5/8?
I've just been staring at rulers for a long time.
Well, that's good. So you guys got to that's going to be part of the quizzes. There's going to be math on the midterm. Adding fractions, simplifying fractions. What?
We did math for plumbers the last 2 weeks. In my plumbing class.
Oh, you're in plumbing class. Yeah, you do a lot of math. And if anybody's well, none of you guys are in carpentry right now, but the carpenter instructor, it's all about math. Because if you cut wrong, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And I just put that on YouTube. So 1/2 inch is the same as 4/8, right?
Mhm.
So 4/8 plus 1/8, it's 5/8. So we want it from here to here, we want it to be 5/8 of an inch long. So again, I'm gonna line up one of my circles in that center part with the line, and then I'm gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm just gonna do a line across. I'm at the same time gonna mark an 1/8 inch back for my dimension line, just because I know it's an 1/8 inch off of that. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come into the drawing, I'm gonna just eyeball this. I'm gonna stay about 1/8 of an inch away. And here I'm gonna go. And if I didn't do this, if we had a lot of stuff happening in the drawing, you could easily get very confused about what we're trying to dimension. So notice here's my ground line. I want that to extend at least past my dimension line. Then I'm gonna put a dimension line in. Again, I'm extending 1/8 of an inch on each side. Then I'm gonna do my tick marks. As if I turned my head, rotated my head 90 degrees. I'm gonna do lower left to upper right. And the tick marks just tell you where the dimensions stop and start. So it says this dimension is starting here and stopping here. Architects tend to like tick marks better than arrows. And arrows by hand are really hard to draw if you're not perfect at it. So I've got my tick marks there. Now I need to do my dimensioning. So the same thing, I'm gonna be 1/8 of an inch off here for my lettering, and I'm gonna be 1/8 of an inch high. So I'm just gonna go and do my guidelines across there. And you can barely see them. That's what it should be, you should barely see. Now I need to do my straight lines, and I can't use my triangle, but I'm gonna use my parallel rule or T-square for my straight lines. So this one is 3 feet, so if I can do this without bumping the camera. 3, and then the feet dash 0 inches. And then up here, and you're gonna wanna center it. And you notice I'm not measuring that I'm centering, I'm trying to eyeball it. 4 feet dash 0 inches. And on Blackboard, they have rubric section for each assignment. I'm gonna write how I grade this. So on this one, it's 25 points for that you've got it set up and you measured properly. 25 points for the correct line weights, and then 25 points for dimensioning. If you don't use a straight edge for your dimensions, I won't give you any credit for it. So that's what that is. Now I want to do the window at the top. This isn't necessarily how I would dimension a set of drawings, but it very quickly gave me all the conditions that we needed. And if you notice, my actual dimension is always between the dimension line and what I'm dimensioning. So here it's above, here it's above, and then here the dimension is here, it's always above the dimension line. So here's on top, I'm sorry, up here it's on top. So I've got, this one is 5 feet. Again, I want to do it as if I had an 1/8 inch gap plus a 1/2 inch long. So from here to here, I want it to be 5/8 of an inch. But I'm carrying my extension lines into the drawing so I know what I'm dimensioning. So I'm going to use my Ames lettering guide. And I'm going to measure 5/8. I'm going to line up one of the circles with a line, then count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and draw a line across. I'm going to immediately draw a little mark where the dimension line would be right after that. Sorry, I went on mute there and I lost my camera. Okay, we're back. So I've got my 5/8 of an inch line marked up here, and then I marked back a 1/2 inch where my extension line would go, or my dimension line would go. I'm going to come into the drawing. I'm not going to touch any line. I'm going to stay away from all the lines in the drawing. I'm just going to go up to it with a lightweight line. And we want these to be lightweight so that they're secondary information. It's when you're looking for details. They don't overwhelm you. And then I'll go up here and draw my dimension line. And then my ticks again, lower left to upper right with a heavy line. So what's the heavy line, you guys? What, lead? HB, yep. And now I need to do my lettering. I've already got a guideline that's an 1/8 inch long, 1/8 inch off the top. So I just need to add another 1/8 inch line. And then I'm going to write my dimension, which is 5 feet. And do you see how I'm always moving my triangle back and forth? That makes it easier to draw. If you don't take it off, you go quicker. My last dimension is going to be this 10-foot overall dimension. And I'm going from the ground line up to here. Here I've got an 1/8 inch gap and a 1/2 inch long. So I'm going to take my triangle. I'm going to run my Ames lettering guide. And I'm going to count my 1/8 inch gap, then one, oops, a little bit off. My 1/8 inch gap, then 1, 2, 3, 4, to the edge, end of the line. I don't need to worry about it down here. I will use the ground line. Then I'm going to come in and make that a lightweight line. Now I need to do my dimension line. My dimension line is going to be 1/8 of an inch back from the edge. So again, I can come here, and when you get good at it, you can make all these marks all at the same time. So I got my 1/8 inch line down there. I come in back and do my ticks, lower left to upper right, as if my head were turned. And I'm going to extend my ground lines a little bit. Do not take them to the edge of the paper, though. So anytime you draw an elevation of a building, you always have to have a ground line, something for it to sit on so it's not floating in the air. Then my last piece is to do that 10-foot dimension, and I'm going to be 1/8 of an inch off of the dimension line and 1/8 of an inch high. You keep seeing me drop pencils and put them down. I have a different pencil for each lead type, different lead holder. So we're 10 feet dash 0 inches. And sometimes I turn my whole body and my head to make it a little bit easier. So this is what the drawing should look like when you're all done. It's a little clearer in person than it is on the camera, but I'll scan this and put it on Blackboard. The last thing is I need a title block at the bottom. How far off the bottom are title blocks, guys?
1.
And how far from the edge? 1 inch off the bottom, how far from the edge? 1/2 inch. So that's standard for all of them. And how thick is the line? What kind of line weight is it? What? Heavyweight line. Then when you do all your lettering in the title block, you need to use the Ames lettering guide also.
Francis, with the ticks,
Mm-hmm.
how do you know which way they go?
Lower left to upper right as you're reading the dimension.
Say that one more time.
Lower left to upper right.
Got it. Got it.
And you want to be consistent throughout the whole piece. So that's this drawing. Are there any other questions on this? And this will be due next Monday. This is the last drawing that will be part of the packet that needs to be in, you turn in for midterm. Leona, can I borrow your binder? I think it's the 12th. Let me double check. It might be the 19th. So I wanted to show you Leona's binder. So what she did was she kept all of her assignments in here. My examples on one side. Let's see if I can zoom out a little bit. Not as far as I can. My examples on one side, and then her drawings on the other side. And she goes through. You want to keep this there because if you forget what line weight to use, that's on assignment too. And so this is what I'm looking for in the organization. Is a nicely organized, and then here's her squares. We talked about it. She's not right because her spacing wasn't right here, and then she's got to do the heavy line for her title block. And this one,
Oh, yeah, you wanted to show us the rule.
I know I'm going to show you right now.
Okay.
So this one, I said to Leona, this was supposed to be centered on the available drawing space. There's too much space here, or too much space here and not enough here. It's pushed way to the bottom. And what she did was she took a 45-degree triangle from the edge and went up. And what you want to do is go from corner to corner. So I'm going from where the edge of the title block would be up to that corner. Not where the edge of my line on the title block is, where if I carried the title block line all the way across. So an inch from the bottom to the corner. If you don't have a triangle that's long enough to go that whole way, you can take two triangles, hold them together, and then pull it apart and make a mark there. So you can, just to find the center, you can use two triangles. Doesn't matter what triangles they are. I happen to have two 30-60 triangles. Any questions on that?